Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're doing something a little bit different. We're currently in Milan, Italy. We just spent about 24 hours here. You can check out that video link in the description down below. But we had a great time here. We saw a lot in a short amount of time. We had some great food. Overall, I think we really liked Milan. But the reason that we're in Milan is that we were able to scrounge up some pretty cheap business class fares with TAP Portugal flying from Milan to Lisbon, and then onward from Lisbon to Chicago. So we have to go back to the States for a wedding, so we thought, what better way than going back in business class? And we found these really good fares, plus then we could spend a day in Milan. So what's wrong with that? So now we're about to head out to the airport. We're about to get on our flight from Milan to Lisbon. And that flight is also in business class, but of course it's probably going to be just the European business class of a middle seat blocked. But we'll show you how that goes. And then we'll have our onward flight from Lisbon to Chicago in their lie flat beds, which should be super nice. So yeah, here we go. Our journey started in the beautiful Milan main train station, where we boarded a train that took us directly to the airport. From the main train station, it's about 50 minutes to get to Malpensa airport, which is not too bad, but you should figure this time into your plans if you're staying in the city. The cost is about 13 euros for the train, so much cheaper than a taxi, and honestly, it's just as fast. The train also brings you right into the terminal, so it was a very short walk for us to get from the train station up to the ticketing counter. Unfortunately, there's not an automatic ticketing system at Malpensa Airport, so we had to stand in line. There is a separate premium ticket line for TAP Portugal here, but it still took a very long time to get to the front. We were really not sure if this was normal for TAP Portugal, but we were waiting in line behind only about 6 people for about 20 minutes. We were just glad that we weren't in the economy line. Eventually, we were on our way to security before getting to the lounge. Once again, though, there was a huge line. This was even for the premium fast-track security, so we weren't quite sure what to make of this. After about 40 minutes here, we finally got through and were on our way to the lounge. With the TAP Portugal business class ticket, which they call the executive class, you get access to the Lufthansa lounge in Milan. This is a contract lounge for many of the Star Alliance partners, and these lounges are always very well appointed. We've been to the Lufthansa lounge a few times in Munich, and we really like them. This one met all of our expectations. There were plenty of breakfast and lunch items that you could snack on, and there's all different types of waters, sodas, and alcoholic beverages on offer. Even though this was a contract lounge, we would say that the number of options for both drinks and food were a bit higher, and the quality was much better than we would find in most contract lounges. Overall, it was a good experience, and quite a nice place to spend before our flight. Our flight was even delayed, so it was even nicer to have this space. Eventually, we had to make our way to the extremely dated pier of the terminal where we would catch our flight on the TAP Portugal Airbus A320. We made our way down the gate, but then stopped for some reason. After getting our boarding passes scanned, we stood here for about 15 minutes before we were allowed to board the plane, something which did not amuse Catherine.
I don't like that.
We made our way to our seats, finding that it was indeed just like every other European business class, a row of 3 seats with the middle seat blocked. The cabin felt fresh and new, and the seats were well padded, seemingly better than the rest of the economy cabin. We did find power in the seats, with a nearly universal plug socket, as well as these nifty contraptions designed to hold a phone or tablet while flying. There was no in-flight entertainment here, but we were not really expecting any. The headrests of the seat were also adjustable, which was very nice, and the table seemed to be a good size. It was at this point that the woman in the row ahead of us decided to update her Instagram with the same music over and over and over again. We stayed at the gate for a while before pushing back, and at this point the flight had been delayed by about an hour and a half. We were starting to worry a bit about our connecting flight onward to Chicago from Lisbon. As it stood, we would only have about an hour and 15 minutes there, which we were hoping was enough time to connect. We took off and enjoyed the scenic Italian Alps to the north. Right after takeoff, the flight attendants provided us with the menu for today's meal service, which would be a choice of either guinea fowl or tortellini with a beef carpaccio starter. We both chose the tortellini and were not disappointed. The portion size was very large and all of the dishes looked absolutely amazing. It was delicious, and we were glad that we didn't fill up on the food in the lounge before our flight. On this flight, the staff were amazing. They provided us with some great wine recommendations for our meal. This commitment to service and making sure that we were getting something that they knew we would like is something we've only experienced a few times while flying business class, especially since this was just an inter-European flight. After lunch, we had a nice port wine and coffee, while the Instagram influencer in the row ahead of us decided to put down her hair in what was left of our food. Before we knew it, we were descending into the Lisbon airport on a relatively calm and cloudy day. Unfortunately, we pulled up to a remote stand and waited for a bus to take us to the terminal. We realize that this is necessary at some smaller airports, but it always takes the magic out of flying business class. From here, we made our way to the lounge and onward to Chicago. Make sure you check out our next video where we show you a review of the long-haul flight on TAP Portugal's A330. On the return journey, we flew back through Lisbon in the executive class once again. This time it was on an Embraer E190, a smaller regional jet that TAP uses for European flights. This plane has a 2-2 seating configuration, so you don't really get your own space in business class. It would be nice if they blocked one seat in each row to give you some extra space in business class, like they do on the CRJ900s with Lufthansa, which is also a 2-2 configuration. Overall, the seat was a bit more dated than the A320, owing to the older age of the plane, but it was still very comfortable and had plenty of space. For this flight too, we got a small meal, and because it was around breakfast time, this meal consisted of fruits, bread, meats and cheeses, a small quiche, and of course the best part of the meal, a Portuguese staple dessert, the pastéis de nata, a small custard tart. Honestly, that dessert made the whole meal. Finally, we landed once again in our destination. So what did we think about the TAP Portugal European Business Class, or their Executive Class? First, let's talk about the lounge. The Lufthansa lounge is a contract lounge, but we didn't really have a chance to get into the TAP Premium lounge on this flight, so we can really just rate this contract lounge. It was great. There was plenty to eat and drink, and the quality of the food was very high. The only thing it was missing was a la carte dining and a wait staff to bring you food and drinks. It was very nice and a very pleasant space. We give this lounge a 4 out of 5. Now we'll talk about the food. The food on both of these flights was amazing. For being such a short flight, we were not expecting gourmet meals, but they really felt like it. The tortellini and carpaccio tasted fresh and was extremely flavorful, and the wines that were paired with these meals at the suggestion of our flight attendant was divine. We had a bit of port wine after lunch as well, which was amazing. The flavors of Portugal really seemed to pop in the food and drink that was served on these flights. Definitely a 5 out of 5. Now let's talk about these seats. Since this is a European business class flight, it's not really fair to compare these seats with those that are on longer flights. So we're going to compare against other business classes that we've experienced within Europe. On the A320s, the seats do just fine. On the E190, it would be nice to have a space blocked next to you. The seats themselves are comfortable in both planes and relatively spacious. They do have in-seat power, which is great, and the tablet holder is a plus. However, they don't have any in-flight entertainment, but this is common among European business class seats. We would give these seats a 3 out of 5. There was nothing really spectacular about them. When it comes to service, we would say that it was amazing. You don't really know what to expect when you're taking a short hop business class flight around Europe. And with some airlines, it feels like the flight attendants give you your food and drink and then disappear until it's time to land. That could not be further from our experience on TAP. Our flight attendants kept checking up on us constantly, filling our glasses, asking how we liked the food, and providing wine recommendations. She even gave us some tips on where we should go in Portugal the next time we get to visit. It was really a great experience, and the service made it so. 5 out of 5 here. So now we can talk about the value for money. We booked our flights as a round trip from Milan to Chicago through Lisbon. In total, including all 4 legs of these round trip flights, it cost $1,598 per person. Considering that a similar flight directly from Munich to Chicago in economy would have cost around $1,000 at the same time, this wasn't too bad. We got the business class experience with only a little additional cost. In fact, this is something that TAP Portugal is known for, having cheaper business class flights than many of its competitors. The only caveat is that you have to fly through Lisbon, which adds some time to your travel. However, we had a great experience here. Make sure you check out our onward flight to Chicago on the TAP Portugal A320 Neo in the lie flat business class seat. You won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.